Welcome, folks. Welcome to Navigating Cross-SIG Collaborations with SIG Docs. My name is Lejano. I'm a solutions architect.
We did.
I'm a solutions architect with Red Hat. I'm one of the SIG Docs co-chairs as well. I also work with SIG Security. I'm a sub-project lead for SIG Security, leading the external audit sub-project. I've also been a release lead under SIG Release as well.
I'm Xander Grzywinski. I'm a tech lead with SIG Docs. In the past, I did a fair bit of work with SIG Release as well, was the 127 release lead, and then also served on the Kubernetes Code of Conduct Committee, and for employment, do nothing. So yeah, mostly open source stuff at the moment.
Hi, everyone. I'm Savitha Raghunathan. I am a contributor to Kubernetes for the past 5 years. I started my contributions with SIG Docs, and then I moved on to release. I led the release for 1.22, and then currently I am a sub-project lead for SIG Security documentation. And being here feels like full cycle, it's where I started. I'm so glad to be here, and I am going to pass it on to Divya.
And thank you. I am Divya Mohan, and I work at SUSE as part of my day job. And outside of that, I also contribute to Kubernetes and a bunch of other open source stuff. But specific to Kubernetes, I've been a part of the release team, just like the other folks on this talk. And I'm currently co-chairing the documentation along with Ray and Natalie, who's not here. And we manage the whole documentation that is visible on kubernetes.io. So now let's hope that this is working fine. Okay, so we have a packed agenda to get through today, so I'm gonna quickly go through that. First up, we're gonna look at the way the Kubernetes community is structured, not just on GitHub, but in general. So that's just going to be a brief overview, but after that, we're going to dive deeper into how SIG Docs is structured, and the content on SIG Docs, not SIG Docs, or the content of the Kubernetes website is structured, and we'll learn a little more about how it gets updated, and that gives us a natural segue into how we collaborate with the release team, because releases are those periods in time where we have to actually update docs, right? You have to go through the process of updating your reference docs, your your normal docs, etc. So that's the next thing, and then we'll delve a little more into how we build that rapport amongst us and the release team, and then we'll finally look at this. Okay, that is on the next slide, I think. Yeah, we'll finally look at the SIG security collaboration aspect, wherein we'll learn how we collaborate on maintaining and creating new documentation around specific aspects of security in Kubernetes, and lastly, we'll look at how you can get involved if you wish to. So without further ado, just jumping right into the Kubernetes community structure. So the community in itself has been divided into a number of subgroups. 24 SIGs as of today, if I'm not wrong, so please correct me if I am, but 24 special interest groups, and if there's a specific focus area within the special interest group, say like within security, there was a requirement for a greater focus on the documentation aspect, so you will have like a sub-project area as well. Within docs also, we have multiple sub-projects like the reference docs, the blogs, the localization, etc. So those are like specific focus areas within the within the SIG itself. And then we have working groups, and altogether I think those are like the working aspects, but then we also have like governance committees, like Xander mentioned the Code of Conduct Committee, and we also have an overarching steering committee that's responsible for steering stuff within Kubernetes. So if you're looking at like for a more graphical overview, this is what it could kind of look like. And when we're talking about documentation, it's one of the 24 groups that I mentioned before under special interest groups. We focus on creating, maintaining, and updating documentation for the whole project. With that, I think, Ray, over to you to talk about the documentation SIG specifically.
Yeah. So since this talk is about SIG Docs, and SIG Docs is known about or to publish the upstream Kubernetes documentation, and we're in 16 languages. So behind SIG Docs is a large group of folks around the world that works on upstream documentation. We are divided into 4 different sub-projects: the website itself, blogs, reference docs that Xander's going to talk about, and localization. Because of our great global efforts, the Kubernetes documentation is now available in 16 languages, and there's always more in the works as well. We do have a tech stack, and we have great tech leads along with Xander, Kat, and Chiming as well. And so Kubernetes.io is a static site, so everything is in Markdown. So everything is also stored on GitHub. It's on github.com/Kubernetes/website. Our platform is Netlify, and that builds from GitHub. The framework is Yugo, and our theme for Yugo is Doxy, which is very specific for tech docs as well. We do use the same CI/CD system Kubernetes uses, which is Prow, and to dynamically generate charts as well and graphs, we use mermaid.js. And like I mentioned before, everything is on GitHub. So about the Kubernetes website on Kubernetes.io, it is organized in 4 main areas. First is concepts. So if you want to dive deep into learning how Kubernetes works, all the different worker nodes, all the different node types like worker and control plane, and all their different components as well, you would go to concepts. If you want to do and start to learn about single tasks, like how to configure a pod, or how to configure a config map or secret, you would go to task. And for more in-depth tutorials, there is the obvious tutorial section as well, and it will talk about a walkthrough how to accomplish a goal. So they will actually use an application container image as well, so that you would deploy for different purposes. So one could be a messaging queue, or it could be a simple ZooBooker application. Lastly, we have a reference, where we do keep a glossary, and we have reference guides as well that's generated, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So I'll go high level on how we go from a pull request to publishing on to Netlify to update the website. So first, a contributor could be anyone not in the Kubernetes org. We welcome any folks that want to contribute to Kubernetes. So if they want to fix any typos, fix any updated links, or create update docs about new features, updated features, they would make a pull request. The Netlify is aware of those GitHub changes, and so Netlify will actually create and build a preview of what those changes would be on a whole different site. So it'll be a separate, we call it deploy preview site. It'll be actually the full website, full documentation website, just on its own. So we can preview the changes. We do require reviews, of course, for our pull requests. So if you are a Kubernetes org member, they can apply an LGTM or looks good to me label onto the pull request, or they can review it and then ask for any changes, make any comments, make any suggestions on the pull request. Once you're satisfied, then they can apply that LGTM label. But we do also welcome informal reviews as well from anyone in the community. And someone with an approver status, once folks have climbed the contributor ladder, gone from reviewer to approver, they will also review the pull requests, and once they are satisfied, they can also make some requests as well for some changes, make some suggestions, and they will finally give an approved label as well. And once an LGTM and approved label are there, their CI/CD system, Prow, will kick in and check to make sure, first the CLA is signed, of course, and make sure there's the LGTM and approved label as well. Then it's okay to merge. Then it's going to merge into the main branch. and it's merged, and Netlify knows about the merge, and Netlify will build the site again and deploy it. So every PR that is merged in GitHub, Netlify will also build a site. Also, when any pull request is made to our GitHub repo, Netlify will also build a preview site. So next I'll pass on to Xander to talk about collaborating with SIG release.
Yeah, so this section is going to kind of get into, or it's the beginning of what was the title of the talk, and talking about cross-SIG collaboration, and that ends up being a pretty important thing for docs. And SIG release is kind of important to us, especially because all four of us were heavily involved in SIG release. I began my journey there as a contributor, and I think several of us did. So I think it helps to have just a little bit of context on how the release team works and how they ship Kubernetes releases. Those are happening 3 times a year now over 15-week cycles. And throughout this cycle, the release team is working pretty heavily with SIG Docs to ensure that documentation is getting created for the features that are involved in a Kubernetes release. And I think that has really increased throughout the last couple releases. There always has been a Docs sub-team on the release team, but over the last 2 to 3 release cycles, it's become a tighter collaboration where each SIG Docs meeting, we aim to have a representative from the release team present to give an update to ensure that by the time the release ships, the documentation is in as strong a place as we can be. I know that documentation isn't the most exciting subject given the size of the crowd, right? It's not that interesting, but when documentation is missing or not up to a high standard, we do actually hear about it. People are upset and frustrated by that lacking. So here's a little bit more on how the release team is structured. This is actually just a quick slide. You can see the various sub-roles that comprises, with the docs lead and docs shadows being a core part of that release team. So what they do on the release team as a docs sub-team is they are ensuring that each feature that is present in a Kubernetes release is properly documented and that it is hitting correct milestones throughout the release. So at a certain time checkpoint in the release, they need to have a PR open. And it's a blank PR. At a certain point, they need to have some doc content there, and then by the time we're getting near the end of that release, the full documentation needs to be in place, and then it needs to merge by a certain date. In addition to that, they are maintaining the development branch, and so keeping the dev branch in sync with the main branch and keeping that up to date throughout the release process. And then reference docs. This is something. So this is the part on the website that hosts all of the API documentation for Kubernetes. This is maybe something that some of you have used before. I have always found it especially useful. This is generated from the API spec that gets updated with each Kubernetes release. In the past, this was something that release team members generated at the end of release. These days, one of the tech leads will step in and do this generation. It's something that can take a few days because it is a complex process. This code base is challenging and it's difficult to maintain. And so I bring this up because it's one way that if you are looking to get involved in SIG Docs and you know how to write Go or Python, looking for something to contribute to, this is something that we really could use some help with. We want to get this project up to a modern standard. And so, that's a little bit of a cry for help, but also, just rah-rah open source, come help us. We also do a fair bit of work with the comms release team here. And they are responsible for the release blog and all feature blogs that get published at the end of the release cycle. And we end up working pretty closely with them because that all is going to go live on the Kubernetes.io website that is maintained by the SIG Docs team. And so we also end up coordinating release-related webinars and press interviews and such. Yeah, and it's important because there's a lot of coordination that is involved in making sure that those publishing dates are set up ahead of time and that all of that is able to go live right when it's intended to and in the correct order. And yeah. All right, I will pass it on to Savitha to talk about collaborating with SIG Security.
Thank you, Xander. So let's see how SIG Security documentation project collaborates with SIG documentation. So what do? We aim to enrich the current Kubernetes website with updated security content. What that means is keeping the content relevant with respect to security and updating the examples so that they are secure by default. I have been there where I have just copy-pasted the example into production. So if you're like me, we are trying to do a little bit better, one step at a time, to make the examples secure. And you can build on top of it. It's not 100% secure, so just don't take it by face value. It is a stepping stone for you to build and add more security features with respect to your production environment. And we also add new content. We add concepts, we add tutorials, we also add new examples and blogs. And to give a little bit of historical context on this project, this used to be a part of SIG documentation, I think 4 or 5 years ago. And then that time SIG Security was not formed. We formed the group 3 years ago. And we rehomed this subproject to the SIG Security because it was a better fit there. And we work very closely with every SIG, especially with SIG documentation and getting all the content merged. We have made a lot of contributions so far. When I say a lot, it's not in the quantity. I think it's in the quality. So we have tried to add sections of hardening guide. These sections go deeper into topics like authorization, authentication, scheduler configuration, and etc. We also have a baseline checklist, security checklist for administrators and application developers whenever they are deploying a Kubernetes cluster or whenever they are writing an application to be deployed on Kubernetes. They can just go to this one pager and see if they are checking the minimal requirements to make it more secure. It's easy to print, and we are constantly updating it. So if you are ever at that page and you think we are missing something, please create an issue. And if you are interested, you can also create a PR. We welcome all kinds of contributions. We also work on blogs. There are some of the blogs that we have published on confidential computing. We have published blogs on a review of NSA, CISA, hardening guide, and RBAC, and many more. So we welcome blogs if you have anything that you want to add on the topic of Kubernetes and security. And no third-party software, please. So this is just to give a glimpse of what we have done, what's in flight. These are large-scale efforts. Sometimes it takes over a year. When I say it actually takes over a year, we just merged one of the PRs for application checklist. I met this contributor last KubeCon, and at KubeCon at Chicago last time, I think. So I met him there, and he was interested, and he started contributing. He wrote this amazing application checklist that we merged recently, and it had a back and forth reviews. I think it would have had at least 200 comments or so, and we recently merged it. So I hope it is useful for everyone. It is definitely useful for me whenever I'm just checking things to deploy stuff. We also, I want to talk about how we actually collaborate with SIG documentation. So every issue comes in, every enhancement, bug, any feature comes in the form of an issue. And we have 2 places to track the main, the project level ideas and tutorials and stuff like that gets tracked in the SIG security repo. And there is also this Kubernetes website. That's where majority of our issues come through. And whenever an issue is created by a person who's using the documentation, and kudos to the docs team, they make it amazing. So if you go to the website and if you see something is missing or something is misrepresented or out of date, or you would like to see something, you can always go to the lower bottom. It says report an issue. When you click on that link, it directly takes you to the website issues. So you can just fill out the form and you're done. Voila, there you made your first contribution. So we get a lot of issues that way, and the docs team actually triage them and assign it to SIG security. And they also reach out to us via Slack channel if it is important, or if it requires extra set of eyes. And the next step is PR reviews. They also help us a lot with the PR reviews. Any security-related documentation PR requires 2 sets of reviews. One is a technical review to make sure that the content is technically accurate. That comes from the area on which the content is related to. For example, there is an RBAC-related PR. SIG auth will put their review, LGTM, if it looks good to them, and then it'll come from SIG security. And then the SIG Docs people actually help us to make sure the content adheres to the style guidelines. Style guide guidelines, yes. Yes, it seems like guide. Okay, style guide guidelines, and they also help us make sure it's like grammatically correct and it is simple English so that it's consumable by everyone in the world. So to make it accessible, and they also help us in getting the document, the PR merged so that it's available on the website. They also help us with the content organization. For example, if we are putting up a new PR on something like authentication or some other security-related topic, they will help us find the right place to actually merge the content. For example, it could be a concept, it could be a tutorial, it could be like anywhere else. We have a current discussion that's going on where to move the security checklist to. Should we keep it in the concepts or should we keep it in best practices, so that it's accessible, available, someone can search it and find it in the right location. Yes. So if you're interested in learning more about SIG security documentation, there is a link up there in one of the slides. And I'm going to pass it on to Divya to talk more about how you can get involved with the SIG documentation project. Thank you.
So, thank you. The first call to action would probably be, joining the Kubernetes Slack. The reason is we mostly hang out there. Everyone in the Kubernetes community is a part of that. But if you are a fan of meetings and would like to attend more meetings, we also have that for you. We basically meet fortnightly for the SIG Docs, the whole SIG as a subgroup, but we also have specific sub-project meetings held on more, how do I say it? On a monthly cadence, let's put it that way. So we have those meetings as well, and if you're from the APAC time zone like me, it's difficult to join meetings at the time that is normally listed there because it's normally midnight when I have to join these meetings. So we have an APAC-friendly time zone meeting as well on a monthly basis. And if you're absolutely intimidated by the amount of information that you just saw, we also have a new contributor meet and greet, which gets held on the first Tuesday of every month. And that is in a very EU and APAC-friendly time zone, but not so friendly for the American ones, but we're trying to fix that. So that's another avenue. But to get meeting invites for all of these, the best way would be to actually just subscribe to the mailing list. So these are all hyperlinked, and the slides will be available after the session on Shared. So you can directly click them and get invited to the mailing list and subscribe to the calendar invites. But all of these are avenues to get in touch with us. But if you're not a fan of meetings or even Slack channels, that's completely fine. You can, as a consumer of the documentation, if you're seeing a typo, you're seeing a sentence that can be phrased better, that would be completely okay as an issue to us as well. Like if you're able to file an issue, just like I think Savitha or Xander or Ray, I don't know who of them who mentioned this, filing an issue in itself would also be a contribution, because it helps us know that some consumers are not able to find the documentation as accessible as we find it. And of course, PRs to fix that issue would also be welcome, because clearly, as you can see, we are issuing a call for help. So PRs to fix issues are always welcome, and they'll go through the process that Ray outlined. But this is just to say that, the only way to get started is to actually, consume the documentation. It's really, really just that. And let us know if, we can make it better for you. Yeah, that's probably it. And if there are any questions, we're happy to take them now. I don't know how much time we have left, though. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. We have 5 minutes. So if you have any questions, we're happy to take them. But if not, y'all are camera shy, y'all can catch us later. That's also fine. Oh, thank you. Okay.
So you have issue and PR wranglers.
Yeah.
When do you populate that
That's on an annual basis. So that's a very good question. So the question was, we have issue and PR wranglers. So for those of you who are unaware what those terms mean, as alien as they might sound, they're basically the people who are going to review your issues and PRs on a weekly basis. So as the year ends, it's one of the duties that we undertake before Christmas sets in, before the Christmas fever sets in, to actually have a rota put out for issue and PR wrangling, so that when we enter the new year, we have an adequate amount of people staffed for those roles, and it's not like we've just gone into the holiday season and been in a limbo for all that while. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
I want to add to that as well. We also have a PR Wrangler Shadow program as well, where folks who want to learn how to review PRs, they could sign up as well. Like every PR Wrangler, every approver, it's a little different on how they mentor a shadow. I like to do a short one-on-one Zoom meeting with them at the beginning of the week, show them how I review pull requests. We have some pages on Kubernetes.io on how to review pull requests as well. I show them, walk through a few reviews I do, touch base throughout the week a little bit, and then at the end of the week as well, I'd like to touch base at the end of the week, just to see how, if they have any questions, they can also feel free to ping me as well, and also send me any questions on any specific pull requests or any comments that they would like to make or they have made. They can send that to me over Slack async as well.
Yeah, any other questions? Okay then, we'll see you in the hallway track if you have any. But for that, thank you. Thank you for being a patient audience. Thank you.